Good day, this is Miss Jero, and now we're going to discuss about the part 2 of our last discussion, which is the demand and supply, and we will move to equilibrium. Before we begin, I want you to have your notes and ball pen so that while I am discussing, you're taking down notes. Alright, so based from the definition, equilibrium is dictates by the price, or what we call equilibrium price, at which the quantity of the kind of good that buyers are willing and able to buy, which is the quantity demanded. And the quantity that sellers are able and willing to sell, that is quantity supply. So if the demand and supply become equal or balanced, it's so-called equilibrium. For our next bullet, since the quantity demanded and quantity supply are the same, these are singularly referred to as equilibrium quantity or the QE. Next, based from the table, our example for the market demand and market supply for the rice, we have the kilos, price in kilos, okay, and also the quantity demanded in kilos also, and also the quantity supplied in kilos again. So basically, if the prices increase, the demand will decrease. And if the prices increase again, the supply will increase. So again, bakit po ito nangyayari? Dahil tumataas ang presyo, si consumer, nawawala na siya ng demand to buy a product. Why? Because the price become high. However, in the eye or in the mind of the businesses, if the price of products become increase, so anong ginagawa? They are tend to have more supplies. Okay. So as you can see in our demand and supply, naging balance po siya. Ibig sabihin pareha silang 40. They meet because the price is 30. Always keep in your mind again that supply and demand become meet or nagbi-meet sila, depende po yan sa presyo. Alright, so based on our demand and supply curve, we have some scheduled. Okay, ito rin po yung kanina sa aking previous slide. We have two lines. Okay, so yung two lines na yan, if the line is red, it represents demand. But if the line is yellow, it represents the supply. Sa ating 20 pesos, nagkaroon tayo ng 60 na demand. Bakit po? Kasi po, mura yung price. But in the eye of the businesses or the supplier, dahil mura ang presyo, hindi muna ako mag-susupply. Hindi ako mag-titinda. Bakit? Kasi po, konti or minimal lang yung aking magiging benta. For our next schedule, we have 25 pesos. In our 25 pesos, kung makikita po natin, yung ating pong demand, bumaba ito ng 50,000. Okay? So, 25, 50,000. Bumaba. Why? Again, the price become increased. But, in the eye of our businesses, okay, pabor yun sa kanila. So, kaya po ang gagawin nila, magsusupply po sila ng mas madami. Next, in our equilibrium price, which is the third schedule, we have the 30 pesos, and then, nag-meet po ito ng 40,000. Both supply and the demand. For our fourth schedule, we have 35 pesos. So, 35 pesos naman po, dahil mas lalo itong tumaas, ang nangyari po sa ating demand ay unti-unti na pong nawawala or nababawasan. However, it is contrast with our supply, no? Mas tumaas ang ating quantity supply by 50,000. Next, for our last schedule, ito na po yung pinaka-maximum na price natin. So, papansin po natin, mas lalong tumaas ang presyo, mas lalo pong nawala ng demand. However, in our supply, nung mas tumaas si price, mas dumami po ang gustong mag-supply. Okay. So, ano pong nangyayari sa ating market kapag po hindi nag-meet ang quantity supply and quantity demanded? So, this graph, it came from the previous slide. This one shows the reasons, okay, through this table. Now, alright, so in our table, in our first schedule, mas mataas po ang demand kaysa sa supply. Anong ibig sabihin? Nagkakaroon ng shortage or kakulangan. Why? Madaming taong gustong bumili pero konti lang ang supply. So, anong gagawin natin sa presyo? Tataasan natin. Okay? Same thing with the second schedule, which is the representation of 25,000 or 25 pesos, I mean. For our third schedule, ayan, nagkaroon po tayo ng meet or nagkaroon po tayo ng balance or naging equal po ang ating demand and supply. So, in that sense, okay, it deals with equilibrium. So, ano pong adjustment sa ating presyo? Wala na po. Kasi nga po, they are balanced. Okay, in contrast with our shortage, we have the surplus. Okay, bakit po nagkakaroon ng surplus? Is it because mas madami po ang nagiging supply kaysa sa nagiging demand? Okay? So, ano pong gagawin natin sa presyo? Para po yung supply natin hindi matulog, no? Maging pera. So, what we'll do is to downward or to give low prices to our products. Alright, so what are the effects of changes in demand and supply in the market equilibrium? So, di ba po kanina, nung yung mga fix natin, or let's say, yung example natin sa table, nung prinat natin, yun lang yun. As it is lang siya. Ngayon, kapag po nagkaroon tayo ng changes, or let's say, binago po natin yung prices natin para po mawalan tayo ng tinatawag na surplus and shortage. So, ito na po yung magiging, or these are the effects of the supply and demand kapag po nagkaroon na tayo ng market equilibrium. Ibig sabihin po, yung ating demand curve or supply curve, nagbabago na po ang nagiging takbo ng ating demand curve. Alright, so this example is came from the previous topic that we have about the bottle. Okay, so same thing with our analysis last meeting. So pag tumataas po ang presyo, tumataas ang presyo, bumababa ang demand, mataas ang presyo, tataas ang supply. So same thing, kapag po mas mataas ang demand, kailangan taasan ang presyo para bumaba ang demand. Okay, so that pag tumaas ang presyo, tataas ang supply. Okay, in contrast, kapag po mas maraming supply, kailangan natin babaan ang presyo. Bakit? Para po magkaroon ng demand. Okay, based on this shift in demand and the new equilibrium, okay, yung nangyari po sa ating first demand, and D1, okay, ito yung D1 natin, yung dark blue. We also have the price one, okay, this one, okay, and also we have the supply. So, yung supply natin wala pang pagbabago. Okay, ang pinag-uusapan lang natin dito yung demand. Okay? So, ang nangyari po dyan, no? Okay? Dahil po nawalan tayo ng tinatawag na, or let's say, hindi po nag-meet ang supply and demand, okay? Magka-adjust po si demand, paano po siya mag-a-adjust? Okay, ang gagawin po niyan, no? Gagawin po, dahil mataas po ang nagiging demand, tataasan po natin ang presyo. Okay, bakit? Para po, unti-unting mabawasan ang ating demand. Next, okay, so this example or this graph, okay, let's just assume that the weather is unfavorable. So dahil hindi po pabor ang weather, obviously, what will happen? No? Bababa po ang ating supply. Okay? So pag bumaba yung ating supply, what will happen? No? It intended to have an increase of demand. Ayan, kung makikita nyo, nag-increase yung demand. So dahil nag-increase ang demand, okay, so anong gagawin natin? Taasan natin ang presyo. Para ano? Bumaba ang demand. Okay, if we're going to work the demand and supply together, okay, so this is the note about the graph. An increase in income shifts the demand curve rightward from D1 to D2. So, dahil nga tumataas ang income o tumataas ang allowances natin, obviously, tumataas din yung ating demand. Why? Because we have the capability to pay or to buy a certain products. So, at the same time, bad weather shift the supply curve leftward from S1 to S2. So, what is the indication? Again, kaya bumababa ang supply, is it because of unfavorable weather? So, maybe nagkaroon ng bagyo, no? So, dahil wala nang naani, or let's say, yung dapat naaanihin, nasira ng bagyo, okay? So, yung mga nasira na yun, hindi na po siya nagiging part ng supply. Kaya po ito ay bumababa. Right? So, continue tayo. So, the equilibrium moves from point E to E. Okay? So, mapansin natin, ano nangyari? Right? From here to there. Okay? Bakit? Kasi nga po, yung supply natin, bumaba. Yung demand po natin, tumaas. While the price must rise after this shift, quantity could rise and fall or remain the same. It is definitely dependent on the relative sizes of the ships in the figure. So, the quantity happens to fall. Okay? So, ito yan. Okay, so now, what will be the effects of simultaneous shift in the supply and demand? Okay, so wag maguluhan ha. First, increase in supply. So, kapag po tumaas ang supply, ano mangyayari sa presyo? Okay? So, obviously, anong gagawin natin? Para po, hindi masayang ang ating supply. Bababaan po natin ang presyo para po ito ay mabili agad. So, dahil bumaba ang presyo, the demand will increase. Okay. But, if no changes in demand, okay, example, hindi naman to hindi naman nagmamatter. Or let's say, nung nag-increase si supply, the demand doesn't change anything. Okay? So, anong gagawin natin? Still, babaan pa rin natin ang presyo. Bakit? Para po maubos yung ating stocks. No? Para po ito ay maging pera. Okay? So, same thing, ang demand natin ay mataas pa din. Okay, next. When the demand decrease, right? So, let's have this scenario. Okay, mataas ang iyong supply, para po mabawasan ang supply mo, binabaan mo ang iyong presyo. Yun nga lang, wala pong naging effect ito sa demand. Okay? Same thing, nagdi-decrease pa rin siya, nawawalan pa rin tayo ng demand. Is it because maybe the product is not trend, or let's say in Filipino, ito ay laos na. Okay, kaya kahit anong gawin mong baba ng presyo mo, okay, still, si market hindi pa rin bibili. Why? Because hindi na siya swak doon sa panglasa, or let's say hindi na siya needs, or hindi na siya wants ng iyong consumers. So, in our supply here, no changes in supply. So, walang bago, same thing, stagnant. Okay? Okay? In scenario, okay, let's have our example nowadays. Yung presyo, mataas. Yung quantity demanded, mataas. Okay, paano siya nangyari? Di ba, like for example, we are facing pandemic, no? Nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, kahit gaano kamahal nung face shield, face mask, bumibili pa rin tayo. Why? Because that is demand in a certain situation, even though the price are high. So, same thing, there's no changes in our price or even our quantity. Alright, so ngayon, kung mapapansin natin, ang tao, we are used to have COVID now, diba? That's why yung mga, ano natin, yung mga quarantine natin, unti-unting nababawasan, no? Kung dati naging ECQ, naging MCQ, hanggang sa naging GCQ. So, kung mapapansin natin, yung mga demand natin with face mask or face shield, unti-unting na nababawasan. Okay? So, dahil nababawasan na yung demand natin, so, ano ginagawa ng mga supplier? Binababaan nila ang presyo. Even sa market, di ba? Before, ang face shield, magkano? Nasa 100 plus. Ngayon, if you go to Monumento, may magbibili ka 10 piso na lang. So, again, it depends on the scenarios. No? It depends with the situation in the market or even in our economy. Alright. In market scenarios, or let's say in industry scenarios, kapag bumababa ang supply, automatically, nagkakaroon tayo ng mataas na demand. Dahil mataas yung demand natin, obviously, tumataas din ang presyo. Okay? Same thing with here, no? Okay. Ang demand, hindi siya nagbabago kapag, meron tayong kapag, or let's say, kahit po mababa ang iyong supply, mababa ang supply mo, so feeling mo, it is a demand, kaya ka nagtaas ng presyo. Pero nung nagtaas ka ng presyo, okay, walan ka ngayon ng demand. Why? Maybe because people are looking for alternatives, or people are looking for other products that are low price. Okay, if they're going to compare your product to the product that they are used, which is their alternatives. Alright, so now let's have a video, okay, on how to compute or how to calculate the equilibrium price and quantity when it comes to demand and supply.
You would take these two equations and you would solve for equilibrium using them, where quantity demand equals quantity supplied, and how you can determine equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. I'm also going to show you how you can determine points on the demand curve and also the supply curve. For example, if the price is 8, what will be the quantity? Like always, the price is on the vertical axis and quantity is on the horizontal axis. Demand curve is in blue. The supply curve is in red. I'm going to put some numbers in for quantity and also numbers in for price. Just like that. I want to show you something really quick. I just thought of it. Is that all this stuff we do in economics, it's really the old X, Y, or the coordinate system. Let me extend the blue line and the red line. And you'll notice this, except in economics, we only use the upper right-hand quadrant instead of the whole thing. You notice the X and the Y, but we just use the upper right-hand quadrant. So back to our lesson. Quantity supplied is equal to -4 plus 1p. Quantity demanded is equal to 16 minus 1p. The slope of the demand curve is -1, and that's that -1 right there. So now if I plug in 12, price of 12 into the equation, I get quantity demand is equal to 16 minus 12, which is equal to 4 last time I checked. And that's the quantity demanded. Price of 12, quantity demanded is 4. Let's imagine I put in a price of 0, which means it's basically free. I can determine quantity demand. Quantity demand is equal to 16 minus 0. So quantity demanded is equal to 16. Right there. Now let's say price is 16. Very expensive. How much will people want? So I put it into the equation, the price into the equation. Quantity demand is 16 minus 16. Quantity demanded is equal to 0. At a price of 16, people will buy nothing. We can do the same thing for quantity supplied. The slope of the line is a positive 1, that one right there. So let's imagine a price of, let's say, 8. What's the quantity? I take that 8 and I put it into the equation. So I have quantity supplied is equal to negative 4 plus 8, which quantity supplied is equal to 4, positive 4. So the price of 8, quantity supplied will be 4. Now let's imagine equilibrium point. And the equilibrium point is going to be the purple dot right there. That's where quantity demand is equal to quantity supplied. So I take these two equations and I set them equal to each other. Negative 4 plus 1p is equal to 16 minus 1p. Now I'm going to use a little algebra and add 4 to both sides of the equation. So now I have 1p is equal to, you got it, 20. So now I add 1p to both sides of the equation. So I have 2p is equal to 20. Now if I multiply both sides of the equation by 1/2, and that's to isolate the p, now I get those two 2's cancel. So I have p is equal to 10 because 20 divided by 2 is 10. And that means equilibrium price is 10. Now I can take that 10 and I can plug it right back into my quantity supplied equation to determine quantity supplied. So now I have quantity supplied is equal to negative 4 plus 10, which is equal to 6 the last time I checked. So quantity supplied is 6 at equilibrium. I could have also plugged in the 10 to the quantity demand equation, and I would have gotten the same answer, which means quantity demanded at equilibrium is also 6. It's worth noting that the x-axis shares the values for the quantity demand and also the quantity supplied. So what we do is we see that they're both there. But often in economics, we just combine those and just call it simply quantity. For a quick review, we set these two equations equal to each other. That's where quantity demand is equal to quantity supplied. The equilibrium price is 10. And the equilibrium quantity was 6. We took the price of 12 and we plugged that into the quantity demand equation. And we determined that at that point in time, quantity demanded was 4. We did the same thing with 8 into the quantity supplied equation. And that's how you utilize some equations in economics.
Alright, so as you can see, the supply and demand derive or works because of the prices. Okay, now, what will happen, or let's say, paano po nagkakaroon ng changes sa supply and demand natin, at paano po naapektuhan ng ating equilibrium, no? Dealing with the economic activities in the market. So, we have the so-called government interventions in market. So, si government, ang ginagawa niya, yan, ini-intervene niya, or let's say, hindi pinapakailaman na, monitor niya yung takbo ng market. Why? Because governments are dealing with the welfare of society, including all the prices or commodities or price commodities. So, sometimes intervene to change the market outcome. Bakit? Maybe because the seller or businesses put high prices. Or let's say, si supplier masyadong mababa yung presyo niya. So, dahil mas mababa yung presyo niya, okay, what will happen? No? So, yung mga ganun. So, kapag mas mababa ang presyo ng supplier, it become more competitive with others. So, yung competition na yun, maybe somehow, in the long run, unti-unting mabawasan. Why? Because the markets are dependent on one suppliers. So, which is, pag nagiging dependent ang consumers or clients and one suppliers, hindi na po nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na hindi na po nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na healthy competitions. Okay? Because the competition is not fair. Right? So, kaya po si government, chinecheck niya ay dapat halos pare-parehas lang yung presyo. If you're going to go to supermarket, okay, tingin kayo dun ng dilata, yung dilatang masa. Okay? Kung mapapansin niyo po, yung prices nila, magkakatabi. Let's say, pag sinabi magkakatabi, hindi ganun katataas yung difference. Depende na lang kung yung dilata na yun ay galing pa or imported or whatsoever. So yun, dun lang nagbabago. Okay? Pero kapag po tinignan mo yung commodities natin, halos pare-parehas lang po sila ng presyo. And that's how government intervened. Why? Because those commodities are necessities. Okay? So that's why government always take a look on the prices. Okay? So, fight the market. So, yun yung sinasabi ko. So, paano po nagkakaroon ng intervention? Government prevent the price from reaching equilibrium value. Through what? Through price ceiling and the price floor. So, again, government manipulate markets. So, kapag po na-manipulate niya yung markets, automatically also, it can change our equilibrium or the balance of our supply and the demand. Okay, so ano po ba yung tinatawag natin na price ceiling? Pag sinabi yung price ceiling, dapat yung presyo mo hanggang ganito lang kataas. Hindi na siya pwedeng magbigan. Okay? So, price ceiling is a government imposed maximum price in a market. Kaya po nagkakaroon tayo yung tinatawag na suggested retail price. Okay? Because the government imposed it. Right? So, there is also a short size of the market. So, the smaller of the quantity supply and the quantity demanded in a particular price. So, ibig sabihin, pag nag-price sealed na si government, it's either marami kang supply, it's either konti ang supply mo, it's either konti ang demand mo, yung price mo, dapat follow ka pa rin kay government. It doesn't matter about the quantity of your supply and the demand. Okay? Next, when quantity demanded and quantity supply differ, so the short side of the market will prevail. And next naman, the price ceilings create a short stage. Okay? Bakit po nagkakaroon tayo ng shortage? Kasi obviously, dahil mataas ang presyo, okay? Ano nangyayari? Nagkaroon kasi si government ng price lang hanggang dito lang ako. So dahil hanggang dito lang ako, okay, paano pumapasok si shortage, no? Shortage, ibig sabihin lang yan, ay nagkakaroon ng shortage, is it because, okay, dahil may price ceiling, no? Dumadami po ang tinatawag natin na demand. Okay, bakit po? Kasi nga po si government, nag-impose siya eh. So, hanggang dito lang dapat kataas yung presyo. Okay, dahil hanggang dito lang dapat kataas yung presyo, si market, ang gagawin niya, okay, they will took the opportunities, okay? They will take the opportunities to buy a lot. So, kapag po bumili sila ng mas madami, okay, nagkaroon ng mas maraming demand, kasi nga po yung presyo niya, ito lang yung halaga, hanggang dito lang dapat yung halaga, bawal na siyang tumaas pa, okay? So, the market will have a demand. So, kapag po nagkaroon ng demand, kakaroon po tayo ng shortage of supply. So, increase the time and double or treble requires to buy the goods. Okay, kasi nga po, yung presyo natin, magdi-decrease. So, what will happen with our opportunity cost? Obviously, mag-rise yan. Why? Because, obviously din, you have a lot of foregone things. Why? Because you took the opportunity to grab the minimum prices or the low prices. Okay, so, ano pong nangyari, kapag po nagkaroon tayo ng price ceiling? So, again, we have the maple syrup, yung ating example pa rin kanina. Okay, so, in our graph, nakikita po natin, a price ceiling lower than the equilibrium price. So, sabi ni government, okay, kahit ito yung minamandate ng market natin para po hindi tayo magkaroon ng shortage or let's say surplus, Pag sinabi ni government na dapat $2 lang, yung presyo mo dapat $2 lang talaga. Right? So what would happen with the supply? Obviously, bababa siya. Bakit? Kasi nga po mababa lang ang presyo. So what will happen with our demand? Tataas. Why? Because the price decreased. Okay, so ano naman po yung black market? No? Maybe somehow you've heard about the black market or underground economy or whatever. When we talk about black market, okay, black market is definitely a market that have illegal activities. Okay? So, at the price above the legal ceiling. Kaya ulitin natin, yung mga nasa black market po, obviously, they are illegal. So, somehow, no, the price will become more, or let's say, the price will higher in our equilibrium prices. Kasi nga po illegal siya. So, the more na illegal ang isang product, the more na, kaya illegal siya, konti lang yung nagsusupply, dahil konti lang yung nagsusupply, dumadami ang demand. So, dahil madami ang demand, tumataas ang presyo. Bakit? Kasi nga po, illegal. No? These are not controlled by the government. The unintended consequences of price ceiling. So first we have the long lines. So having long lines, a lot of people, so a lot of your customer or consumers are in to buy your products. Next is the black market. So somehow, no, nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na hindi pagsunod sa batas. Why? Maybe because yung mga businesses natin, they cannot earn much because the government dictates the price. And often higher prices. Sabihin, kasi sinabing higher prices, ang gandun lang. No? I mean, ito na yung pinakamataas. Alright, so about the graph for the price ceiling with the black market, as you can see, with the price ceiling lower than the equilibrium price and the black in a black market. Mapapansin po natin, pag bumaba po ang presyo, obviously, the quantity supply will become low and will sell for a price even higher than the equilibrium price. So, dito naman pumapasok ng black market. Ibig sabihin, nagiging hindi naman masama. It just so happen na nagiging illegal siya because these businesses are not following the rules by the government. Alright, so next we have the price floor. Yung price floor po ay kabaltera ng price ceiling. So, kung kanina, si government, nag-impose siya ng maximum price in the market, this time, minimum price na lang. So, the purpose is to help the sellers. So, the price floors for agricultural goods. So, kapag po nagkakaroon tayo ng price floor, okay, so, dito po nagkakaroon ng support system when it comes to our agricultural products. So, surplus. So, excess supply not eliminated by by a fall in price. So, kapag may price floor tayo, surplus or surplus, nagkakaroon tayo ng mas madami or let's say, mas excess na quantity of supply. So, the temptation is to sell the surplus below the price floor. Bakit nga po? Kasi nga po, para po yung ating inventory or yung ating pong stocks ay maging pera at hindi lang po siya nakastock sa ating mga warehouses or let's say nakastock sa mga bodega. So the government purchase the surplus. Ito po yung sa NFA natin, no? O kaya sa mga bigas. No? Kapag po may mga sobra, mga product, ginagawa po ni government, no? Sila na po yung bumibili and then somehow, no, they do some programs to help some communities. Okay, so in this example, nagkaroon po ng pagtaas ng presyo. Okay, nagkaroon ng mataas na presyo. So dahil tumaas po ang ating price, if before 65 cents lang yung non-fat dry milk natin na example, dumating yung time na kung saan nagtaas siya ng presyo. So what will happen with our demand? Ayan, bababa po. Ayan. So it's just like same rules of what we have kanina. And increase supply or increase the quantity supply. Okay? Bakit nga po? Dahil po again, tumaas po ang ating presyo. The result is a surplus. The distance between K and G. So yun, K and G. Okay, any questions are highly appreciated. Thank you so much for listening.